Hello, welcome to another edition of Club Shay Shay. I am your host, Shannon Sharp, also the proprietor of Club Shay Shay. And the guy that's coming by to have a drink and conversation today is my former boss. He's also a three-time Pro Bowler, two-time first-team All-Pro. He's an all-decades 1980s tight end, two-time Super Bowl champ as an executive, National High School Football Hall of Fame, College Football Hall of Fame, Pro Football Hall of Fame, Browns Ring of Honor, the Wizard of Oz, my former boss, Ozzie Newsome.
All my life, been grinding all my life. Sacrifice, hustle paid the price. Want a slice, got to roll the dice, that's why. All my life, I've been grinding all my life. Look, all my life, been grinding all my life. Sacrifice, hustle paid the price. Want a slice, got to roll the dice, that's why. All my life, I've been grinding all my life.
Oz, how you doing today, bro?
I'm doing good, Shannon. It's always a great opportunity for me and you to have a little chit chat to go back and forth.
And you know what? And I tell people, I say, Oz and I have a he was my boss, but we're kind of like, he's like my older brother because we're always joking and carrying on with one another. So it is, Oz, it's always good to catch up with you. How have you been, Shannon?
Go ahead.
I was going to ask you, how have you been?
I've been good, like I'm here in the office, as you can tell, and just finished with practice and was just finished watching some college tape a little bit, because pretty soon the draft will be here. So I'm staying busy, enjoying what I'm doing. And if you could guarantee me a victory on Sunday, I'd be a real happy man.
Hold on. You retired. I thought you was gonna be less busy. You was gonna get a chance to do more golfing, enjoy life. It seems like, yeah, you got a better job, but you working just as hard.
It's cold outside. I can't go play golf. When the weather's like this, I'm better off in the office.
So, are you enjoying the new role? You transitioned. You're the executive vice president. So, do you enjoy the new role now?
Yes, I am. I really am. Eric was with me. I think he was the second person that we hired when we moved over from Cleveland. So we got 23 years together. Steve did a great job with the transition, had it set up 5 years in advance. So we kind of knew what was going to happen. And it's been going really good. Enjoy my relationship with John Harbaugh, Dick Cass, and Steve has just been unbelievable. And, I'm still around the players all of the time, and that keeps you young.
So are you watching more tape than you did before? So what's the ratio now as opposed to watching practice, watching film on college guys, free agents?
I'm doing more now because I don't have people walking in my office every 5 minutes with, some issues that they probably could handle themselves, but, they always want the boss to handle it.
Right.
So I have more time to watch tape. And I enjoy going out to practices and I watch the practice tape. So I'm doing a lot more, all of the things that I wanted to do and I couldn't do because I had all those other things to do, I'm able to do it now.
When I look at the 2020 Ravens, obviously 2019 was an unbelievable season for you guys. You had a great record, Lamar Jackson, the unanimous MVP. It didn't kind of end the way you wanted to. So when you go back and look at 2019 coming into 2020, what were some of the things that you wanted to do to make sure 2020 ended better than 2019?
Well, I think we matured as a team in 2019. And that maturity did not end with the way we wanted to by getting beat in the first round. But right. I think we learned from that. You can learn from losing just like you can learn from winning.
Correct.
And so I think we did that. Eric and our group, we did a good job of putting together a good roster. It was different this year because we had the 16 practice squad players, so we could build bigger depth for our football teams because you're going to need some depth as you go through it. And, in the second year with Lamar and how Greg Roman and John have embraced Lamar and putting him in a role that he can be who he is. Right. And our players understand that. So we're better defensively. We're still good in the secondary. We're starting to get some pressure. And, with me, getting Calais and Derek Wolfe, up front where we can stop the run when we have to stop the run.
When I look at you guys and I look at what you've done. You've always been a guy that's looking to get that veteran free agent that come from somewhere, that's won before, that's a great locker room guy. And when he makes sure things don't get to the head coach, they doesn't have to go upstairs. They can handle it within the locker room. And I believe that's the guy in Calais Campbell that you mentioned. What has he meant to your team?
Well, we had that with you and Rob Woodson.
Mm-hmm.
We had it with Tony Saragusa. We've always had that veteran player, as you just described, that can come in and they understand our culture. And our culture is, we aren't going to allow you to be who you are, show up on time, practice hard, and play well on Sunday. Then all the rest of the stuff takes care of itself. But to have someone that come in like Calais, who was thirsty to win, and he was being able to bring his leadership ability to match it with our ability to find ways to win games. It's been a great match, like it was with you.
Appreciate that. But you signed. Go into what were you thinking when you signed Dez? Dez hadn't played in a very long time. He was coming off a very serious injury, Achilles injury, and at a skilled position, especially the wide receiver, the Achilles injury is normally the death blow. It used to be the ACL, but modern medicine has made the ACL. Guys come back stronger, faster, better from ACL. But the Achilles, not so much. What was you thinking when you signed Dez Bryant?
Well, it was a relationship that Eric had with his agent. We brought Dez in 7 or 8 weeks before we signed him. And he came in and he worked out. And, he needed to get in football shape.
Right.
And we told him, take the opportunity to go get yourself in football shape, and we'll bring you back in for another workout. That's what Eric promised Dez. And he came back in and he was in football shape, And what he does, he provides a bigger target when we get down into the red area.
Yes.
We got Marquise and we got Duvernay and we got Willie Snead, but now we have a more bigger physical receiver down in the red area that can make some contested catches because, things are tight when you get down in the red area, but a guy can go up and make a contested catch.
You tried to sign Dez a few years ago and that didn't work out. Why did you think it not work out then? Had he not gotten over being released? Because a lot of times, you and I have talked about this in the past, when guys have been in a situation for an extremely long period of time, it's tough. When a team releases you, it's almost like a relationship. You like the shock of, I'm no longer a Cowboy, I'm no longer a Patriot, I'm no longer this. Do you think that had something to do with it?
No question it did. I think he was in shock by getting released. He needed to take some time for Dez. And, to jump right in this situation that we were offering him, he just wasn't comfortable with, and he took a whole year off, a year and a half off. And then obviously he signed with the Saints. But, those things happen, but I think a relationship was built with Dez during that time. A trust factor was built with him. And so when it came time for him to try to come back to play football, then he picked up the phone and called Eric.
I'm looking at you. You've been great at this, and we'll talk about this. Your last draft, the last player you selected in the first round was Lamar Jackson. What did you see, Ozzie, in him that would make you trade back into the first round to select him? Because he's anything but prototypical. Why were you so convinced we need this guy and we'll build the fortress around him? We're going to play to his strength, not bring him in and make him play to ours.
Well, you have to give the owner, Steve Bisciotti, there was a draft that had 5 quarterbacks, I think, go in the first round, start with Baker at the beginning. And Steve, knew it was time for us to start to look toward moving away from Joe. Okay. And he felt like that class was a good enough class to do it. And what we did with the first pick, we were able to get a tight end, as you know,
right,
and Hayden Hurst. So that was going to help us in the immediate. Joe likes to throw the tight ends. So that was going to help us in the immediate. But then we saw an opportunity. Eric had did his homework, and he knew Philly was thinking about moving out. They wasn't very happy with who they saw on the board at that point. And we had some additional resources with some extra picks. Mm-hmm. So we made the phone call. They were willing to do it. And we got Lamar in, just saying, hey, you're a quarterback. You're going to come here and play quarterback. But I think you have to give all the credit to John Harbaugh, to Greg Roman, And those guys, because in that second year, they said, hey, we are going to do what Lamar did. We're not going to turn him into Joe Montana or Dan Marino.
Right.
We're going to allow Lamar to be who Lamar is. And you know what? He's a tremendous talent. He's an unbelievable person. And, you know, when you get in our business, Shannon, as you know, you play to a player's strength.
Correct.
You know, and that's what we did with Lamar. And you know what? It changed the game a little bit. And I think there are going to be more quarterbacks that are going to be coming out that's going to be like Lamar. And I think he's now the trendsetter.
Ozzie, you know, so many people make the mistakes. You have a system and you're like, well, this is my system. This is what I run offensively. This is what I run defensively. But you know, the really good coaches, they find a way and says, okay, this is what you do well. I'm gonna let you do that. If this is what you do well, I'm gonna let you do that. And for you guys to take Lamar and say, okay, you're a quarterback, and for Greg Roman to build a system around this young man's strength, not a whole lot of people were willing to do that, because that's what you had to do. If you make him a prototypical quarterback, I don't know if he can succeed at being
like he's ascended. Yeah, right. But Shannon, you and I both know if they would have had us blocking 5 techniques and 9 techniques and not throwing us some balls, I see how you shaking your head. Then they'd have been wasting our time.
It wasn't gonna work out.
But you know, like I said, all that credit goes to Greg and John having the willingness to say, hey, we are going to do this. And you know what? And it enhanced Lamar, and Lamar even had more buy-in because, you know, people weren't trying to change him.
You mentioned John Harbaugh, and you was on staff when you hired John. What was it about John? Because special teams coaches don't normally get hired. They're normally former head coaches, offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators. You don't normally hire a special teams coach to be a head coach. And that's what John Harbaugh's background was in. And you guys, you and Steve Bisciotti, you was like, this is our guy.
Well, you know, the special teams coach, you know, they deal with that 52nd and 53rd player the whole time.
Yes.
You know, they're trying to figure out every week who are the best guys that they can get to be able to go out and perform. So they understand the mechanics of the roster. You know, and that's huge when you're dealing with a new head coach. He understands that, you know, we need to keep that 8th offensive lineman or 9th offensive lineman, and we can't have that great special teams player we want. So he understood that. But the other thing that John did, that last year before we got him, he went and coached the secondary. So we had someone that was coming in the building that, number one, was probably the best special teams coach of his time, but had also spent time on defense. So this is a guy that can walk into 2 rooms and be able to fix some things. And then, of course, you know, his dad was a longtime coach. His brother was, so it was football. You know, his sister married a basketball coach that's coaching in college. So, you know, it was all about football, sports, coaching. And you know what, and it's been an unbelievable hire. And he's an unbelievable person with he and his wife Ingrid and their daughter Allison.
You talk about that, Ozzie. You talk about the relationship, because you know, you and I early in my career, I was on special teams. Ain't nobody really trying to play special teams. Everybody's trying to be the starter on offense. Everybody's trying to be the starter on defense. And for him to be able to take all those personalities, he's like, guys, I understand that you want to be in a different room, playing offense, catching touchdowns, running the ball, or getting the sacks or getting interceptions. But this is a third of what we do. And to get guys to buy in, I think that's the biggest thing for a head coach, is to have communication and to convince the guys to believe in what he's saying.
No question about that. And you can't teach that. You know, you have that. And the thing that, you know, because I even remember you were a pretty good special team. If you're a good special teams player, then you're probably going to be a good position player on either offense or defense, because you realize, you know, this is my time. Well, I'm on special teams when I'm young, and I'm going to be good at that. Then that helps you to be good at that. But yeah, but having John, having all of those understandings and dealing with the different personalities, because, you know, you got, you know, first round defensive back be like, no, I don't want to play on those special teams. But you have to be able to get them to play on special teams, because it is 1/3 of the game.
Ozzie, you started this, started this in 1996. And there are very few people that can say, I've drafted a Hall of Famer. your claim to fame, you've drafted 3 Hall of Famers. Suggs is probably going to be the 4th, and if Lamar continue on the path, this will be 5. What's your thought process when you go into the draft looking for a player? Is it tape? Is it game? Is it feel? Is it talking to the guy? What is it that made you in 1996 says Jonathan Ogden and Ray Lewis? Because when you guys moved from Cleveland to Baltimore, the popular pick, everybody wanted Lawrence Phillips. You wanted somebody that could sell tickets, but you like an offensive lineman. An offensive lineman don't sell tickets.
Well, yeah, but we spent a lot of time building our board. It actually starts a month after the draft, where our scouts have to do grades on the upcoming seniors. Okay. And so you have 9 months worth of work. And when we were in that draft, and it was no doubt that the #1 player was Jonathan Ogden. Okay. And Kevin Hardy, we liked him. He goes. Simeon Rice goes. And we're sitting there. And Mr. Modell wanted us to take, Lawrence Phillips. But if you're going to start something, which we were starting, and then you have people believe in what you're doing, and if you're going to rate someone to be the highest rated player, you can't pass him. Even though we had Tony Jones, who you played with. I played with T-Bone. Tackle himself, but we could not pass. And that set the board. And of course, as we get to Ray, then we were lucky enough to have that second pick in the first round. Mm-hmm. And he was the highest rated guy at that time. So that set the tone is, hey, do all your work, get your board set and stay true to the board.
When I look at, obviously, and these guys are transcendent. Arguably, you make the case that Ray Lewis is the greatest middle linebacker to ever play the game, one of the greatest defensive players. Ed Reed, in my estimation, is the greatest free safety, strong free, whatever you want to rate it. He's the greatest free safety I've ever played against and ever taken off on tape. What is it? What is it that convinces you, okay, Jonathan Ogden should be the #1 player if I were the #1 pick, hey, we take Jonathan Ogden. What is it about a guy? What is it that you see?
Shannon, the guy's a football player. We playing football.
Right.
At the end of the day, you got your measurables, you got all your psychological testing, you got all your interviews, but at the end of the day, is the guy a football player?
Can he play football?
Priest Holmes was a football player.
Yes.
Marshall Yonder was a football player. Jermaine Lewis was a football player. So, at the end of the day, you have to get a guy that's a football player and forget about some of the other metrics that we use. Is he a football player? And if he's a football player, he's going to play for you.
Oh, I forgot Yandy is going to end up in the Hall of Fame too, because all those Pro Bowls and first team All Pros. So and guess what? You're going to end up going in the Hall of Fame again as a contributor. I thought I had it. I thought I had you. You're going to have 2 to 1.
Well, but Shannon, you and I on the same cul-de-sac already, man.
But see, now you get to move into another building. You will have 2 houses in the same subdivision.
Well, hey, we just gonna enjoy them first ones, okay? Let's enjoy those first ones, But if it ever happens, it'll be the shortest speech in the history of the Hall of Fame. Because I'd have had to sit there and listen to all the rest of them.
Yeah, hey. And I don't know. Hopefully we have it. But can you imagine with all the guys that they missed 2020 and they're coming back in 2021? Man, that thing might have to start at 5 o'clock in the morning and go to midnight.
Hey, what they say, we got to pack a lunch and we gonna be there.
Yeah, man. It's gonna be a lot of people on that stage dozing off, Ozzie. So, how do you feel about this season? Do you like where you are? Obviously, you like to win a few more games, but I'm looking at you guys the last 2-3 weeks of the season. This is the best you look all year.
Well, Shannon, it's been a atypical season with the coronavirus.
Right.
And all the different protocols, there's a lot of anxiety away from the football field because of dealing with COVID-19. And today you can do this and tomorrow you may not be able to do it. So all 32 clubs have had to deal with that. And, and we went through that situation where I think had 19 guys that was not able to play because of COVID. But, we made it through that. We weathered that storm. And right now, I think the guys feel like that, hey, we got to this point last year and we didn't take the next step. and it was probably 80–90% of the team was on that 14-2 team last year. So I think they're looking forward to taking this year and going one step further.
Let's get back to you. Let's go back to where it started. You grew up in Alabama, a small town called Muscle, Alabama. You worked in the cotton fields. What is it about your childhood? What do you remember most?
Well, you know what is that you need to work. You know, hard work pays off.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what you and I endured was nothing that our parents had to endure with segregation and integration,
right,
and all of that, and the things that started changing when you and I were coming along, but it didn't change for them. But you know what? They never gave up from being good people, good, hardworking people that loved each other. And so those things that you just carry with you, you know, and I saw it, you know, as I was growing up, and things started changing when I was coming up. You know,
right.
I could go to a predominantly white school. I could go and play Little League baseball. That didn't happen with my older brother and with my parent. So I saw things changing, and I appreciate that. You know, I appreciate the past. Is there some bitterness? Yes, there's a lot of bitterness, but I appreciate the past, and that past has helped me to get to where I am today.
A lot of times when I talk to kids today, I said, find something to do as a child, because that'll tell you what you want to do or don't want to do as an adult. Growing up, how I grew up, I knew I didn't want to work on no farm and do what my grandfather did. I knew I didn't want to work in a factory. I didn't want to do any of that. So all the things that I did as a child, it let me know what I didn't want to do as an adult.
I agree with you 100%, man. I always wanted to take care of these hands, man. You know, you.
I mentioned that you grew up in Alabama, and you were of age when the Edmund Pettus, when Bloody Sunday happened on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. What happened in also the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham. What do you remember about those incidents? Did your parents?
Well, you know, at that point,
you're
talking about being 8 and 10 and 11 years old. But yeah, I was aware of that. But what you did, you watch your parents and how they handle it.
Okay.
You know, and what they did, they just kept us closer together, you know. And then, you know what? You learn how to bite your tongue. You know, you learn what battles that you had to fight, you know.
Right.
You couldn't fight every battle, you know. So you learn that from being in those situations and seeing what was going on. But, you know, it was about the family, the neighborhood, and all of those things where everybody took care of each other.
Right.
That's the only way we can make it.
I'm looking at this, and in 1972, you take your football team to the state championship, your basketball team. You was a hooper, Ozzie? I didn't know you was a hooper.
Hey, if I was instead of being 6'3", if I was been a 6'5" or 6'6", I'd be in the NBA, you know. But I was 6'3", you know, and I learned a long time. You can't be 6'3" trying to play in the paint. You know, it just don't work.
So you go to, obviously at that time, there's two, if you're in Alabama and you're a great football player, for the more times than not, at that point in time, you're not leaving the state. You're going to Alabama or you're going to Auburn. Obviously, Coach Bryant is at Alabama. What made you decide to go to Alabama?
Well, you know, I was in the, I think the 4th or 5th class of African Americans that was allowed to go to Alabama.
Okay.
You know, Wilbur and John Mitchell had just graduated the year I came in as a freshman.
Okay.
And they were only selecting a few of us at that time, you know. At each class, there was an even number, which means because we could, you know, room together.
Right.
You know, so there was a lot of things that people didn't realize that was going on during that time. But I committed to go to Auburn because you talked about that 72 high school football championship where the quarterback on that team went to Auburn. The other receiver went to Alabama. They were a year ahead of me. So when I was coming out, you know, Coach Shook Jordan was talking about Phil Gargis was a guy named Gargis and Newsome could be the next Sullivan to Beasley. And so they were selling me on that. So I committed to Auburn. But then, you know what, John Mitchell came up, we went to dinner, and there was just something about Alabama that was different, you know, and that's why I switched from Auburn, went to Alabama, best decision I made.
Talk to us about Coach Bryant. What type of coach was he? Was he hard? I mean, and to this day, everybody that refers to him, nobody calls him, even the coaches call him Coach Bryant.
Hard, but fair.
Okay.
You know, and the lessons that he taught us from the day we got there, when we were freshmen up until we graduated from there, are the lessons that I'm living right now. A lot of the principles that I believe in about whether being the GM for the Ravens or being a football player for the Browns, those lessons were taught to me by Coach Bryant. They're things that you live with. He was able to take lessons that we learned from the football field and apply them to our life away from the football field. And any player that you talk to that played under him will tell you the same thing.
Ozzie, obviously Alabama, it was still, even though you came up and things were a little different, it was still, you know, kind of like, okay, blacks here, whites there. How did it make you feel that you go to it, you play in the stadium 80,000 and they're cheering for you, but those same ones might turn around and call you the N-word or say something out of pocket to you?
Well, you know what, that I talked about being able to bite your lip, bite your tongue, and knowing what battles to fight. But the one thing about it, and my mother and my father found out, my parents found out, when you went to Alabama, you were an Alabama football player.
Okay.
And that separated you from everything else, you know, and whether you wanted that or not, it did. You know, you
were black, but you weren't really black.
You know, you were an Alabama football player. That's exactly. So, you know, and I wore that crimson white, and I'd say Roll Tide.
I mean, you look at this. Alabama player of the decade of the 1970s, two-time All-SEC 77-76, consensus All-American, your final season. You're coming out in the draft. Obviously, you're coming out. What are you thinking? What's the process? You're like, okay, I'm going somewhere, and I'm going to be able to take care of my parents.
Well, you know, it was interesting. I was coming out, and I think the league was split. Some teams wanted me to play wide out, and some teams told me they were going to move me to tight end.
Okay.
You know, so I didn't know. I didn't, you know, where I was going to come in. And I can tell you the receivers who was in that draft are the ones that went before me. Wes Chandler, James Lofton, John Jefferson, you know, okay, Ken McAfee.
Hey, Ozzie, people don't realize how good John Jefferson, how good Wes Chandler, James Lofton's in the Hall of Fame, but Wes Chandler, they call him the Moon Man because he wore goggles. Wes Chandler could run routes with that Eric Coryell system. They were magnificent.
I understand, and JJ could catch a BB in the dark too. So yeah, but that was a great group. So, you know, and so, hey, I get drafted by the Browns. I go in, that first mini camp, I'm there, rookie mini camp, I play wideout.
Okay.
And I was having some success. You know, they taught me some things. But then after that mini camp, we stayed over for an additional week. And Rich Kotite, who ended up becoming the head coach of the Jets, you know, he was my tight end coach, was the receiver tight end coach at that time. And he told me Sam wanted to see me. And so to go up.
Sam Retigliano was the head coach at the time.
Exactly right. Yeah, Sam Retigliano. So I go up and he said, you proved in this mini camp that you can play wide receiver in this league. And you probably be a good one. He said, but I want to move you to tight end. I think you'll be a great tight end. And he said, Ozzie, we're going to throw you the football when you're at tight end. Well,
that's all you needed to hear.
Exactly.
That's all you needed to hear. You wanted the ball.
Yeah.
Your last year at Alabama, you didn't win the national championship. That's like, it's normally like a foregone conclusion. You go to Alabama, you stay 4 years, you're going to win an SEC title and you're going to win a national title. That's almost like a foregone conclusion.
Well, there's a reason why that team that Alabama is playing tomorrow.
Yeah.
That I have a little bit of a hatred for, because we went into that bowl game and we played Ohio State. We beat them, and Texas lost, and Notre Dame jumped from 4-1 and jumped over us and became the national champions, you know. And so I have some bitterness about that. And hopefully Nick Saban will use some of that again tomorrow when Alabama plays Notre Dame, some of my bitterness.
I look at some of these great Alabama players from Derek Thomas, Barstar, Don Huss, and Joe Namath. Leroy Jordan, John Hanna, Cornelius Bennett, yourself, Julio, Sean Alexander. You got a Mount Rushmore? Who's on your Mount Rushmore of Alabama players?
I think you had to start with Don Hudson.
Okay.
You put him up there. I think you got to put John Hanna.
Okay.
You have to put him up there. How many do I get to put?
You ain't got before. It's Mount Rushmore.
4.
You get 4 heads.
All right. Well then, I got 2, right?
Yes, you got
Hudson
2.
And
Hudson and Hanna.
But then you got to put Newsome up there. And then you know what? The other one would be Dwight Stevenson.
People don't realize how good Dwight was.
That's right.
He was on the pace to be the greatest center to ever play before he got his knee blown out. He was unbelievable. Right, he had that injury. No question. Now, but they got this new generation coming up, but we got to see, what their longevity is going to be. Because each year we keep pumping out some new ones, but right now, those 4 it's going to be hard for somebody to remove one of those 4 off of Mount Rushmore. Ozzie, I'm biased. DT, I've never seen a guy. I mean, Von Miller can bend.
I understand.
But that DT, the way he could bend and bend that edge.
Yep. Hey, but Shannon, you and I didn't worry about that because he was going one direction and we were going the other.
Yeah. They don't even. Hey, don't ask me to block him. I ain't got nothing for him. You got zero. No, that's why you play those left tackles all that money and the right tackles all that money. I'm going to catch passes. So if he's trying to cover me, I got him covered. But I ain't trying to block him. Ozzie, one of the things when I look at a guy like Derrick Henry, and a lot of people say, well, the running back position is obsolete and he's too big. He can't get started. Are you surprised the amount of success Derrick Henry is having?
Well, I watched him for 3 years at Alabama, and I remember when they recruited him to come there, and we have all these phobias that we say what guys can and can't do.
Right.
But you know what? You have to watch a guy play, and Derrick can bend. We all know that at some point, if you're an athlete and you can bend, then you're going to be able to play on this level. And you can bend, and he's got a mean stiff arm. You go back to Earl Campbell. You go back to Chuck Muncie. Those guys were big like that. But, and you just, people, it was Earl. And Chuck Muncie, Chuck Muncie was unbelievable. He was a big,
yes.
Tony Galbraith, another one. So there have been other big backs. And so Derrick, and he went to a good system in Tennessee where it's a downhill system. I mean, hey, we've played him twice and we still haven't tackled him yet, once he gets going in the fourth quarter.
Well, I don't know. We've seen backs like Earl was stocky. Earl was 240, but Earl was what, 5'10", 5'11". We've never seen a guy 6'4", 255, 260. Because I don't care what anybody say. They better stop listening to that man at 240. He's not 240, Ozzie. And you know it too.
Well, like I said, his ability to bend, his vision, and he's got good feet. And then the other thing is he can finish. He gets into that secondary. Half of the times guys are trying to find angles not to get there to tackle him, but he can finish.
Yeah, they tried to wait until he get past so they can jump on his back because they don't want to come up to the front or to the side because that's all coming. You mentioned the guy that's currently playing, Derrick Henry, arguably the best running back. Julio, let's talk about Julio. You know something about receivers. Where would you rank Julio?
Well, as a physical specimen, right at the top, And I saw Julio play in high school. Mm-hmm. And he was a man playing against boys, when he was a 17-year-old at Foley High School, where he went to high school at. But he's a phenomenal talent. And, I don't know if you heard the story that DeMarcus Cousins got dunked on by Julio, So that says something right there. But unbelievable physical specimen, got great hands. He can, you got the Marvin Harrison, you got the Steve Smiths of the world. You got some guys that can do a little of this, a little of that. Julio can do it all. He's just one of those things. He's had some issues with his injuries, but when he's got his game on, he can do it all. Unbelievable physical specimen.
I want to know who the wide receiver coach, because as big as Julio is 6'2.5", 6'3", 230. and can run routes like a 185-pound wide receiver. Calvin Ridley can run routes. Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, Devontae Smith. All these guys can run the route tree.
Well, you know what? At Alabama, one guy recruits the next guy, you know, because we got some young guys there right now, Devontae Smith, and,
yes.
you know, the young kid that got hurt. Those guys got recruited by the other guys, you know, so that's what happens. Hey, you come here, this is what's going to happen to you. You can be the next one. Everybody wants to be that next one. If they go there, they can be that next one.
Right. Your draft, you mentioned some of the guys that were in your draft. Also in that draft, Earl Campbell, James Lofton, Clay Matthews Jr., Doug Williams. Man, that draft was loaded.
Yeah, Art Steele, you know,
with the Kansas City
Browner, yeah, he did. Terry Miller, yeah, it was a heck of a draft, you know, and I got to know a lot of those guys from, you know, being on the different All-American teams, right? You know, and they were all a great bunch of guys, you know, great people, right, as well as good football players, you know. So yeah, it was a real good class, and I think we impacted the league once we all got our chance to get on the field.
Ozzie, your rookie year, you're named Browns Offensive Player of the Year as a rookie. As a rookie. That never happened. That had never happened before. What, I mean.
Well, I think, you know, I came in with some notoriety because I came from Alabama. And people had seen me play, you know. Right. I wasn't an unknown quantity when I got there. But, you know, what happened is they were struggling with the quarterback position. And they didn't know they didn't think Brian Sight was going to be the guy. Right. But he had a breakout year that year, you know. Right. And you know, and so we became, you know, we started throwing the ball all over the park with myself, Dave Logan, and Reggie Rucker. You know, we had the Pruitts in the backfield. So we were throwing it all over the park. And so I just got in to be a part of that. And I put up some numbers. And I think, you know what, a lot of people say people like what's new, and I was new. You know, and I think that's how I won that award. I was new.
You had some heartbreak. The Drive, John Elway, and then a few years later, you lose to them in Denver. What do you remember standing on the sideline watching The Drive?
Well, I learned a lesson because, you know, we had gotten ahead, and I watched John take that team down the field. You know, my buddy Hanford, on that 3rd and 18, I don't know why he was trying to play a 7 route when he knew Vance Johnson, whatever, wasn't one of them little old guys.
That was Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, okay, all right, was going to run it in. He and I still haven't gotten over that. You know, when I see him, I remind him. But, you know, I learned a lesson. We got the ball back, but we had spent our time watching that drive. That drive drained everything out of us. So when we got the ball back, we wasn't prepared to go out there and go win the game. Right. So I've learned, and I try to tell this to other people, that when you're not on the field, you need to be getting prepared to go back out there for the next series. Don't be a spectator. You know, you can watch Sports Center and all of that once you get home, but you need to be preparing yourself to go, because if we'd have prepared, we could have went back out there, kicked the field goal, and won the game.
It's funny that you say that, because I was a guy, I never stood and watched the game. I'm sitting down. I'm on the Jumbotron because there ain't nothing I can do. All that yelling and screaming, I'm yelling but I'm sitting on the bench because knowing that I'm going to have to go out there and either I'm going to have to hold on to the ball to make sure they don't get it again, or I'm going to have to go help try to win this game.
No question. I mean, and like I said, it was a great lesson that I learned during that time, and I've utilized that for the rest of my career.
Ozzie, a part of your job is not only drafting players, but sometimes you have to have tough conversations with players. Ray had, I came in 2000 when Ray was going through what he was going through. A few years after I left, Jamal go through something, and then you had the incident in 2014. What were some of the things that you shared with the guys to help, especially Jamal and Ray, not only turn their playing careers around, but their lives around?
Well, I knew the person. You know, and I don't talk to the football player, I talk to the person. Okay. You know, and I deal with it, and it's a man-to-man conversation. Right. You know, and, you know, I'm just Ozzie. he's Ray, he's Jamal, he's Ray right. You know what? We're just talking man to man. You know, forget about my title and what you are. Then when you can have a relationship with people and you can talk to people that way, then you can be able to say some things and they'll appreciate. They may not want to hear it, but they will appreciate it because they can say some things back to me that I don't want to hear it, but I know it's something that I need to hear because that person is really unleashing all of his feelings to me, and I need to hear whether I want to or not. So I always said, hey, I'm gonna take my hat off, you take your hat off, and we just two men talking.
Is that the toughest part of your job when you have to have those type conversations?
No, the big ones are not the hard one. It's the ones that, you know, it was certain guys that, you know, number 21s that did all the little things wrong all of the time. Those are the ones, you know, because you be like, hey, dude, it's time for you to turn the corner. You ain't turned the corner yet, you know, so it's them little guys that keep doing those little things, not showing up, you know, sleeping in meetings and all of that, being unprofessional, unprofessional. Those are the ones that drive you because, you know what, they're hurting themselves more so than they're hurting me, you know. So it's all of the little ones. The big ones, you know, you can deal with that because they only come, you're only going to get them once every 4 or 5 years. You don't want them, but they only come once every 4 or 5 years.
That 2000 you put together, did you know 2000 would be special? Did you know that team had the capabilities of getting to and winning the Super Bowl when you constructed that team? No,
I did not. I thought we were going to be good on defense. I didn't know where we were going to be at because we started off with Tony Banks at quarterback and we had, brought in Trent, I think, and now we were talking, I was doing an interview with a guy from USA Today, I think he was USA Today, and he talked about the momentum that was built in the 2000 draft, and the 2000, how we, all of a sudden we got momentum, and the same thing happened in 2012, you get your momentum. I just think that team grew so close together, and we had an identity. We were going to play the way we were going to play on defense. We were going to do what we do on offense. And we had you in there, making the plays that you have to make like you did against the Raiders, All we need was a couple of plays. You were that 3-point shooter, I guess you would say,
That's it.
And so, yeah, but no, that was a special group. It was a special group, but I think the leadership of you, Rod Wilson, and Goose took those young guys, because, Ray and Peter and all those guys and Dwayne, they were very young.
Correct.
But because of you guys, and you all had success, had won, y'all came in and showed those guys what to do, and they followed you all's lead.
Were you concerned that when we went to Tampa that Brian says, okay, I'm not going to have room check? Now, we didn't have room check all year. Were you concerned like, oh, my goodness, these jokers ain't coming in. Ain't no telling what's going to happen. I just hope they show up on Sunday.
No, because I think, again, the leadership we had, y'all had control of that. Y'all had control of it. And if I could keep you guys from going out, then I knew the rest of the guys wasn't going to be going out.
That was the thing. You know what? I think the thing is that what I told the guys, I said, look, you better look around because if you think it's going to be like this next year, it's not. Somebody's going. Coaches are going to leave. Players are going to leave. Free agency being waived. And you don't want to be the guy that says, man, I went to the Super Bowl. You want to be the guy that says, I won the Super Bowl.
There you go. Exactly right. It was, like I said, it was the leadership of that team, but we also had guys that were willing to follow you all's leadership. That's what won it for us.
Ozzie, how do we get more guys like yourself in the position like you are, the black general managers, the black head coaches? Because if you look at the makeup of the league, 70% of the players are African-American, but it's not representative in positions of coaching, position of making moves to bring players in. How do we change that dynamic?
Well, I serve on 2 committees. I'm on the competition committee, which we do all of the major rules, and I'm on the workplace diversity committee. And we have a commissioner, Roger Goodell, who's committed to changing that landscape. And what we have to do is to fill the pipeline with qualified candidates. But to get those qualified candidates in front of the decision makers. Right. Those guys need to be sitting in front of and let the decision makers have that, not, filter them up through the ranks or whatever it is, and they never get a chance to sit in front of Steve Bisciotti or Jeffrey Lurie or Bob Kraft. We need to make sure that those guys get a chance to sit with those guys, because those guys know how to make great decisions. So that's what we're doing. We're spending a lot of time in making sure we got the right guys. We're even helping guys to, prepare themselves to interview or prepare themselves Eric Bieniemy is preparing himself for all of this. So we're doing it. Is it going to change overnight? No. The problem is, I have a little pamphlet right here, and the numbers in 1998 are just like the numbers are now. We haven't made a dent yet. But, I think there are people that are committed to it, and I think we have some young guys that are qualified, that if they get in front of that right person, then we can start to change those numbers.
Because you hear this all the time, Oz, that the NFL is a copycat league. Well, hell, if you copycat, look at Baltimore. There's Ozzie Newsome that's been in charge for all these years, and they play. Look at the way his team plays. Look at the players that he's drafted. Look at what they do. They've only had two coaches, three coaches. Once they got Brian Billick, and now they have John Harbaugh. So in the last 20 plus years, they've only had two coaches. There's something to that. Now, if the league is copycat like we say it is, shouldn't you be copying that formula?
Yeah, but you would. But then there's some other successful people too, and
right?
They may prefer to copy those. You know what I'm talking about? That's why there's some barriers that have to be broken, Shannon, and we're trying. We're trying. I feel good about what our effort is.
Right.
I don't like where we are as a league when it comes to, 2 African-American general managers and 4 head coaches. Those are not good numbers. But I like to have this conversation with you 3 years from now, and hopefully I can say we've gotten better. We've gotten better. But it'll take us 3 years for it to happen, I think.
Ozzie, when we talked about some of your great players. Now, obviously, Jonathan played, I think J.O. played 11 or 12 years. He retired a Raven.
Yep.
Ray played 17 years, all 17 in Baltimore. Ed Reed, how difficult is it a decision when you're dealing with historically a transcendent player? And obviously, you want all your transcendent players to retire Ravens. How difficult was it to we can't go that extra step for Ed Reed or Suggs? How do you make that decision? How do you and John Harbaugh and your staff sit down and say, guys, we've gone as far as we can go, and this is it?
Well, let's start with once a Raven, always a Raven. Okay,
yes.
We'll start with that. But you know what? As in anything in life, you understand that there's a limit in how far you can go. And
right.
But when you fudge it a little bit, yeah. But when you have to look at the totality of what you're trying to do and build a football team, then you can only go so far. So at some point, and I've always said this, and I said it to you when you went back to Denver, I want you to make all the money you can make.
That's
this
what you
is
told me.
all I can pay you. If you got a chance to go make some more, go somewhere, please go. But this is all I can do.
Right.
And I want you to do. And you know what? And we still can hug and shake hands because I appreciate what you've done. But, you only have so many years that you can make this type of money.
Right.
And you need to go ahead and make it if you can. And if you can't, I'm welcoming you back. You're still part of the family.
And that was the thing that I remember most, because I remember having a conversation that year. The Super Bowl was in New Orleans, and I remember having a conversation. And you asked me what I was going to do, and I asked you. I said, "What do you think?" You're like, "Hell, boy, you went to the Pro Bowl. You led the tight ends in catches. You can still play, but let's have a conversation in a couple of weeks, and we'll see where we go." And I was like, "You called me. You asked me what I want to do. I said I wanted to play, and you said, boy, now this is all I can pay you. Now we gonna release you. Now go, hey." You get some money. You're going to get more than what we can offer you. But if you don't find out what you like, come back. We can do something. And I think that's the thing that everybody loves most about you, Ozzie, because you're honest, you're upfront with them, and you tell them how it is. It ain't no, well, Ozzie said this and then somebody else said that. Whatever you say, take that to the bank.
Well, that's relationship building, because I know that I'm going to see players 5 years from then, 10 years from now, and I want them to be able to respect me like I respected them. And
Correct.
I can want to show them the appreciation for what they did when they were a member of the Ravens.
Jimmy Smith credited you and said that the off the field problem that he had, he said you were one of the main reasons that helped him turn his life, his career around. I mean, you talked about, said sometimes you just have the conversation, you take your hat off, they take their hat off, this man to man. I'm not your boss. You're not a player. I'm a man to a man, talking to a man, trying to help resolve an issue.
But you know what? But within that, I got to tell you some things that you may not want to hear.
Okay.
Or tell you some things that you need to change, you know, and you know, Jimmy just did an extension with us today.
Correct.
You know, for another year, you know, and he's a Raven now, you know, and so, but you know, there's some tough conversations. Hey, you need to change, you know, or we gonna have to change. And you know, but I know you. I've known you since, you know, you were 21 years old and we, you know, went through the whole recruiting and drafting process.
Right.
You know, I know what's deep down inside of you and you can change. You know, and when they change, then they become more valuable in that locker room because now they can tell their stories to those young kids also.
You played for Mr. Modell, but he would go crazy if he heard us call him Mr. Modell because he said that's my grandfather, Mr. Modell. So you had to call him Art. Art Modell, he gave you the opportunity at the time no one else had given a person of color that opportunity to run a franchise. Talk about your relationship with Art.
You know, I could say it was father-son. It was owner-GM. It was owner-player. It was, and then I'm going to say some negative things too, because sometimes they wasn't as good as they thought. But, you know, but there was a trust factor that Mr. Modell had with me and that I had with him. And some of those conversations were not very easy, you know,
right,
of me saying, this is what we need to do, or he telling me we can't do that. But you know what? I really respect him as a man. The man had a great heart. It was nothing that he wouldn't do for his players. He loved, you know, it's you got these corporate owners now, you know, but no, this was Mr. Modell's life. As a matter of fact, this office that I'm in, was built for him, right, you know, and when Eric took over, he took my office and then I moved in here, you know, and I'm proud to be sitting in that man's office right now.
And I think that's the thing. You mentioned the corporate side of it because the corporate bosses are not used to being next to the workers. Well, Ozzie, Mr. Art looked at like, oh, those are players. And I remember he would always be on the golf cart. He'd always come out there on the golf cart and you'd be sitting on the golf cart with him. And then me, Rod, and Hooray would come up. He's like, Ozzie, you got to get off because they can win games for me. You can't do nothing for me. So get off and let them take the golf cart. His driver would take us up to and come back and you guys would get back on the cart. But he was an unbelievable man. I believe, and I've had conversations with voters, that Art Modell belongs in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He's not the only owner that's ever moved a team. There have been so many, and they still get their rightful respect. And so for some reason, he's been denied his rightful place, which is a bus in Canton, Ohio.
Shannon, you're 100% correct. And I was on the selection crew for the 100th anniversary. And I had to do a presentation on Mr. Modell, you know, for him to be a contributor. And, you know, and I said all of those things that you said, you know, because there are other owners. Al Davis moved the Raiders twice, you know.
And sued the NFL.
In the Hall of Fame. Yeah, exactly. And sued it. So there he is. There is no doubt that Art Modell belongs in Canton. There's no doubt in my mind, you know, and I just hope that, you know, if we continue to push, that he will get there at some point, you know, and there is that faction that don't want to give him his due. But when you match him up to all of the other owners that in the National Football League and what he did with TV and being the first and only president of the league, he deserves to be in Canton. And at some point, I hope he gets that opportunity.
You have a very unique relationship with Coach Belichick. You became director of pro personnel under him when he was the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. Talk about your relationship with Coach Belichick.
Well, it was a situation where I retired in '90 and he was hired. And we had our first meeting and he asked me, if, are you going to play again? I go, no, Coach, I think it's time. He said, well, I could use you as a player. I could use your leadership in the locker room. You know what it takes. But I made that decision. But then I was fortunate enough to go to work for Bill. Bill does not get the credit. Well, I guess he is getting it now for the football knowledge that he has, the work ethic that he has, what his beliefs are. And I was able to sit there and learn from him for 5 years, and he would push me in the areas and I'd be like, Coach, no, you got to do this in order for us to be a success. So I would say so much of what I have enjoyed being a general manager, I learned under Bill Belichick in those 5 years that we were in Cleveland. He gave me a foundation, and that foundation has helped me to be where I am today.
And Ozzie, but you paid it. But I look at what you've done. When I was in Baltimore, you had James Shaq Harris, director of pro personnel. You had John Wooten, and you remember the veteran players sat in first class in front of the plane, and me and Shaq. It was not. You already know it was not. There was not going. No one was sleeping because we were going to talk and joke all the way back.
Hey, you know what? I still have those conversations with Shaq now. We talk, once every couple of weeks, and he loves those times. He loves to be able to tell you. He'll tell you, hey, Bill Russell needs to borrow one of your hands because he's got 11 rings. Stuff like that. But yeah, I love it. But he was a great football man, and I talk about what Bill taught me. But having Shaq and Woot and then Phil Savage to work along with me in those first years, they helped me to learn because I needed to lean on some other people, and they had the experience and the expertise. I love Shaq. I love Shaq, and he'll always tell you it's quicker by air. It's quicker by air, Shannon.
That's him. Let me ask you the recruiting process or the free agency process in 2000. Why did you think you needed me? I mean, there are other tight ends available. You didn't necessarily need. What was it about me, my playing style? Because I remember, I want you to tell the story, and then I'm going to share another story.
Well, you realize we got Ben coach too that year.
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yep.
Well, then we needed both of you guys. And what we were going to be, it was you, Ben coach, Jamal, Cadre, Pat Johnson, so
Jermaine
we
Lewis.
were going to beat up people, and then we were going to try to strike,
Right.
And so we needed you. You were going to be a mismatch guy, and Ben did all the dirty work.
Yep.
We know that. And he enjoyed it because he was getting a chance to play and win him another Super Bowl. So the pieces just came together, but we needed someone that the quarterback could trust, and they could trust you.
I remember you had the conversation with me because I flew back because Mr. Modell was down there, as I mentioned. Ray was going through his situation in 2000, and Art was already in Atlanta. So I ended up flying back with him, if I'm not mistaken, that Sunday. And I remember getting to the facility, and you were there, and he said, Ozzie, don't mess this up. I got him primed and ready for you now. You just don't mess it up. And I remember you and I, we went to breakfast we went to dinner that night. We had a conversation, went to breakfast the next morning. And he says, now, we're going to do this. He says, I don't want you to change. He said, I don't heard everybody done told me how you are in the locker room. You talk, how hard you work. He says, I want that exact Shannon Sharpe that was in Denver for the last 10 years. I want that guy to come to Baltimore.
Well, Shannon, that's what we allow you to be who you are.
You absolutely.
We're not a cookie cutter organization where, you got to wear a tie, you got to have a sport coat, you got to walk in here and you can't talk. No. We want every player that's a part of the Baltimore Ravens to be who they are, because if you're who you are, then it'll show itself out on the football field. It'll show itself in the meeting room. If you are who you are and you're not trying to be someone else.
Were you ever concerned because, in that playoff run, there was no love lost between us and Tennessee. Jeff Fisher and Brian Billick didn't care for each other. Our teams, our players did not like them, and it's still that way to this day. And we definitely didn't like the Raiders. So were you concerned, like, man, this might be getting a little bit out of hand? They might be doing too much talking.
No, not with that. Well, because y'all couldn't out-talk Brian. You know, the more talking that y'all did, the more talking Brian did, you know. And, you know, I couldn't keep him quiet, you know. But no, you know what? And we had Steve McNair to come and play for us for a year. And we had a chance to talk about that, you know, about that rivalry that we had with Eddie George and that whole group. And then, of course, you know, with the Raiders and that group, you know, but, you know, hey, we were built. We were built to be able, if you look at the quarterbacks that year, you had McNair, Brunell, Cordell Stewart, Jeff Blake. So we had to have a defense because all those guys would take the ball down and go run with it. So we had to have a defense that could go track those guys down, you know,
right.
Keep it from getting that extra first down, you know, and keep a drive going. So that's how the defense would be. And offensively, you know what, hey, with the quarterbacks that we had, you know, we had to play a game where we didn't put the game in the quarterback's hand.
Right.
And we needed somebody that could, you know what, the good thing about you, Shannon, and I can say this, and I don't give you too many accolades, you were a quarterback's friend, because they may not have to be very accurate, but you would make the catch for them. So, and we needed that.
That's what, well, that was my job. I got the name Big Play Shay because we didn't need a whole lot. We knew early on, I mean, having a conversation with Brian, we knew if we could get up 10 and we didn't turn the ball over, you couldn't beat us. You were not going to drive the ball 70, 80 yards on that defense and get a touchdown. So if we got the lead and you didn't get a pick six or scoop and score, it was over.
It was over. That was, and it was so enjoyable. And you know what? And that style of football still wins. Watch how the playoffs play out. You know, now we got some, you know, some athletic quarterback that are doing some things, but they're doing it with their feet and extending drives with their feet. But at the end of the day, you still win football games in December and January the way we won it in 2000.
Going into the Super Bowl, you watched film of the Giants. You saw every game they played. You watched their opponents. Did you think they could beat us?
No, I was skeptical. I didn't like the matchup from their standpoint, you know. But you have to play the game.
Right.
You know, and you have to remember that was it Derek? Once we scored, they got a pick six too. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Am I correct?
Yeah.
Right. And so
they got a holding call that got negated it.
Exactly right. You know what? So otherwise, it would have been a tie game, I think, or close to being a tie game.
Right.
So you know that helped us, and then Jermaine, with the kickoff, gave us that, you know, you gave us that extra little push. And then I remember what Ray told you, hey, you know, y'all got us 10, that was enough. And they went to work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was the thing. I mean, Ray was like, hey, I remember, and talking to Marvin, I mean, that might be a great, you look at that defensive staff with Marvin Lewis, Jack Del Rio, Rex Ryan, Mike Smith was on that.
Mike Smith.
Yeah. I mean, we go to the Raiders and we get up on and we score on them because we scored 7-0. And I remember coming to the sideline and Ray and Rod like, we going to the Super Bowl. I'm like, what you mean we going to the Super Bowl, man? This is the first quarter. They don't go to the Super Bowl. He's like, Shay, they not scoring. I'm like, well, we going to the Super Bowl because we might not score.
I'm just glad you didn't get caught, man. I'm glad you didn't get caught.
They couldn't catch me, man. You know I turned them bowls on them. Look, you've been around the game a long, long time. Where would you rank that 2000 Ravens defense? We know about the 70, I think, 77, 78, 79 Steelers. We know about the 85 Bears, the 2000 Ravens, the 02 Bucks, the what is it, the 14 or the 2012 Legion of Boom Seattle. Where would you rank as far as all-time great defenses? Where would you put that 2000 Ravens?
Well, you know, if you go by Hall of Famers, you have to say the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think they got maybe 5 or 6 Hall of Famers.
All of them in defense.
But, you know, as I said, as you and I talk about, you know, the tight end group, they all belong on the cul-de-sac. You know, a cul-de-sac, there's only so many houses and so many people can go on that cul-de-sac. You know what? You know, so they all belong on there. You know, I experienced the 70s with the Steelers and those guys and what they could do with Mean Joe and L.C. Greenwood and and
Mel Blount, Lambert, Ham.
Mel Blount. I mean, I still got pains from that. But, hey, but those defenses that you talked about, they are in the 85 Bears, I played against that defense also. I'm going to put them all on that cul-de-sac. You know what? And then if I have to choose which house I want to live, I don't think I'll be wrong by choosing any one of them.
The quarterback in today's game, you look at the way they could do this kid, Patrick Mahomes, and the way he can throw the ball with his rolling left or rolling right. Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen. Are we entering the golden age of the mobile quarterback? Because when you say mobile quarterback, used to be he was mobile, but he couldn't throw. Or the pocket passer could throw from the pocket, but he couldn't move. These guys have elevated that so they can throw from the pocket and they can throw on the move.
They're athletes. Josh Allen, he's an athlete. Patrick Mahomes is an athlete. We have athletes playing quarterback, and an athlete can do multiple things.
Okay.
You got your 8 things you want. They can do 8 of them. They can do 7 of the 8. And so, we're in an era of the athlete playing quarterback. We're no longer with the statues and the different things that was happening during our time and before our time. Now, the athlete, that athlete who started off when he was 6 and 7 and 8 years old playing quarterback, being an athlete, is now an athlete that's playing quarterback in the National Football League.
Your last Super Bowl, the miracle run in 2012, that was unbelievable because you go on the road. Now you go beat the Broncos, who had just blown you out like 3 weeks before, and you lose. I think the Houston Texans, they take you apart. Did you think man, I don't know did you think you could get it together in time to make a run?
Well, you know what, and I can say this, and Ray has a big part of it. We lost in New England in the finals in the AFC Championship game.
Year before.
Where we had to drop pass by, I think, Lee Evans. Then we missed a field goal. But you know what? And Ray got up in that locker room and he goes, you know what? God don't make no mistakes. That's what he said. You know what? I go, that's right. You know what? We wasn't supposed to win. So we go to that next year. And Joe gets hot. Joe gets hot in the playoffs, And once Joe got hot, then I think that it ignited everyone else, and Jacoby everybody started playing at a level above who they really were. But right. It was Joe that was the catalyst.
I read where you said you admire Phil Jackson and how he's able to win, but also win with when you in this game, you got egos. I don't care what anybody tell you. People like, well, this guy don't have no ego. Bull jive. The better you are, the bigger the ego that you have. Yes. How you say you admire Phil because he had Shaq and Kobe, he had Michael and Scotty. What is it about him that you admire so much?
Well, number one, he managed some of the greatest players to play in the NBA. He molded those guys into a team, and he made winning the most important thing.
Right.
That's why I admire him. And he did it at 2 different places. He made winning. Okay, yeah, we got Michael and we got Scotty, and when we got Rodman, he got those guys to say the most important thing is winning. We need to win. So that's why I admire. And then he go and does it again with the Lakers. So I admire his ability to mold young men into a team and have one goal, and that's winning.
How much more difficult is your job made by social media? Because obviously when you played, there was none of that. When I played, there was none of that. It wasn't about clicks. It wasn't about it wasn't about TikTok. It wasn't about, doing everything for show. You went out there and you played hard, and then you let the chips fall where you may. But it seems like now everybody wants to record everything. I'm studying my plays. I'm watching film. I'm at practice. I'm washing my car.
Shannon, times have changed. And you have to let the players understand that it's different now, and what you think you can do and people won't see it, they got ways of seeing you. So Don't do it, just don't do it. And So that's what you have to be able to tell them, and I don't understand Instagram and Facebook, and I'm not on any of all that. I got no idea what that, but I know they are. That's what their life is all about.
Right.
And so we have to educate them on that, just like you and I got educated about going to clubs,
right?
Or what neighborhood. So we spend time educating guys on social media so that they can understand how bad it could be, not only for them, but for our organization and for their families, So we have to educate them on that. And we have people that are professionals that do it.
I appreciate you taking time out today. I know you're busy. You got the big plush office now. Congratulations, Bob. I'll be in touch with you. I call from time to time just to ask how the second or third best tight end in the history of the game's doing.
Hey, Shannon, always welcome your calls, man. I enjoy watching you and my man on not First Take. What's yours?
Undisputed.
What's your show?
Undisputed.
The Undisputed. You know what? Sometimes I can sit there and listen to you, but then sometimes I go, no, I done had enough of Shannon today, But you know what? Hey,
go ahead.
You are doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're talking.
I
you were born
that.
to talk. I'm sure your grandmama and your granddaddy told you that. Boy, you can talk.
Yeah, that's what they told me. Say, well, yeah, you can do that. But I need you and Kevin Byrne and Steve Bisciotti to get in the room, because I think at some point in time, I might need to be in the Ravens Ring of Honor. I really do. I think I made a big, valuable contribution. I think y'all need to put that in line.
Get in line. Before I go, I know, I think on the 28th or the 29th of January, they're going to have a virtual reunion of that Super Bowl team, so I'll see you on that virtual thing then, okay?
So what, that'll be, it's the 20th anniversary?
It's the 28th or the 29th of January.
Yeah, it's the 20th anniversary of the team.
Yes, yeah, and they're going to have a virtual party, for 2.5 hours. So you'll get an invitation.
Y'all sending food out of me. What y'all said? I mean, I need to get somebody a jacket or something.
You know what? I don't work in that department,
I appreciate it, man. Good luck the rest of the season, and I'll talk to you down the road, bro.
Okay, man.
Hey, have a good one.
All my life, been grinding all my life. Sacrifice, hustle paid the price. Want a slice, got to roll the dice. That's why all my life, I've been grinding all my life. Look, all my life, been grinding all my life. Sacrifice, hustle paid the price. Want a slice, got to roll the dice. That's why all my life, I've been grinding all my life.
You know what to do. Hit the subscribe button to become an official member of Club Shay Shay, where we always do something for two something.